13 rebounds, 15 and 6 boards for Austin Crozier.
What was a sellout crowd is now pretty empty here.
Steven Jackson with a pair of free throws. It's 97-82 Indiana. Smush Parker activated today when Carlos Delfino went on the injured list with a knee bruise. Ben to the rack, lays it up, no, but we do have a whistle and a foul. Ben just went after Artest.
Oh, that's not
we
good.
got trouble right here in the Motor City. We got big trouble here in the Motor City.
That's not good for Ben. And Derek Coleman had left the bench. That's going to be a suspension. I don't understand. I never saw what set it off, but that's going to cost Ben some money and maybe something else.
Larry Brown trying to hang on to Ben. And Garhert trying to keep Rip Hamilton away. I don't know. There could have been some words spoken out here we don't know about, even though we're in the front row. Steven Jackson still screaming at the Pistons. Derek Coleman pulling Ben back. Garhert pulling Chauncey back.
I can't tell what quite's going to happen here. The dice is down all the way down there. He came back now, but
Rasheed being pulled back by Pat Sullivan.
That was Alden Campbell that was down there, not Derek Coleman looking up.
Now Ron Artest has gone on the headsets. The Indiana broadcast.
And Ben Wallace has threw something at him again. Ben's going to get a substantial fine and suspension if he doesn't really slow down here.
Rasheed is still over on the Indiana side of the timeline.
There goes Ben Wallace again.
There goes Artest up into the crowd. He's absolutely out of his mind. And Steven Jackson slugging people in the crowd here.
The whole Indiana team is in the crowd.
And now the Pistons are coming over.
This is not good for the NBA or for Detroit.
This is the ugliest scene you'll ever see.
Rasheed has to get out of the stands.
What in the world is going on here?
Rasheed's trying to be a peacekeeper in the whole thing up in the stands right now.
Rick Mahorn jumped up to try and keep people apart.
There's a fight down the other end right now. Ben Wallace is on the floor.
Well, the officials have no way to control this. And the coaches and the assistant coaches and everybody, when these guys lose it, and there's so many of them, there's almost nothing you can do. This was a Pier 6 brawl at the Palace tonight. And we still have 45.9 seconds to go.
Indiana's whole team is leaving the court, going to a locker room. People are throwing things, bottles, etc. They're showering with beer now.
Have you ever, Bill?
Well, I've been in the league
29 years. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen a couple of guys in the stands for a fight, and now they're still going at it down on the other end.
This is not a pretty sight, but it happens. Very emotional game. Indiana came here with a lot of intensity, a lot of emotion, and they're really throwing stuff at Indiana going out the tunnel right now.
Well, it's Ron Artest, I believe, who was the object of the fans' wrath over there. You may never see anything like this again in pro sports.
Well, at least in the NBA, because this is going to be a serious situation, and they have called the game for the rest of the game, is what the announcer is saying over to PA.
The game has been called. Indiana wins the game, if you remember, 97-82. And the way it ended was as ugly as anything you may ever see.
Yeah, they'll be unbelievable is going to be the fines and also the suspensions that will be coming out of this game.
Well, the fans, like most fans, hollering at some of the Pacer players, and then suddenly Ron Artest ran into the stands. I mean, you can get hurt at a game like this.
Yeah, I don't know what set that one off, because Ron Artest was way down at the other end, and he just came wailing down the scorer's table, jumped into the stands, and started hitting people.
Here's how it started. Ben to the basket. Hard foul by Artest. Ben said, I've had enough. That's enough. I'm going to shove you. And now poor Tommy Nunez Jr. is trying to keep them apart. And Rasheed Wallace is trying to keep Ben away.
Yep. But
Rip is hot. And Steven Jackson now steps up into the middle of it.
Well, if it ended right there, okay, life was wonderful. Ron Artest goes and gets out of the way. Okay, which he doesn't, with this baggage he's been having, he doesn't want any part of it. And here comes Ron Artest into the stands.
Up into the stands to swing at a fan. This guy runs into the stands to swing at a fan. A guy half his size. Now Steven Jackson's up there swinging at people.
Mahorn's in the
Ricky Mahorn is trying to break it up. Ditto for Rasheed.
And there's a guy, a fan, punching Artest.
Mike Brown, the Indiana coach up there, one of the assistants, trying to slow things down. Rick Carlisle gets Ron Artest out of there briefly.
Well, the cardinal sin of any professional sporting event is that a player, no matter what happens, cannot go into the stands. That is the ultimate sin as far as any professional sport is concerned. You can have your fights on the floor, take your suspensions, but when you start going to after the fans, oh, it's another one.
Here's a fan walking up to Artest, and Ron swings at him.
Ooh, O'Neal will get a tremendous fight.
O'Neal swinging at a fan.
Man, this is going to be set an all-time record for number of games suspended and for the number of dollars that are going to be given away by some of these players.
It's going to be the all-time record in terms of ugliness at a professional sporting event. It's unfortunate it had to happen in the NBA and at the Palace. Man, oh man, Rick Mahorn, the peacemaker. What are you going to do? We'll be back in just a moment with more from the Palace. This is no longer a basketball game, and you got to stop talking about the basketball game. Indiana won it. The NBA got themselves a bad piece of publicity here tonight. George Blaha with Bill Laimbeer and Bernie Smilovitz. I don't believe what I just saw, Bernie.
Well, I was just telling Billy that I think the last time we saw anything close to that here was when he got in a fight with Charles Barkley, but the fans were not involved. And
right.
When that thing started, when Ben pushed him, I walked down about halfway, and Artest was sitting on that table, and his beer came flying out of the stands, and that thing hit him square in the head, and he exploded off that table, and he went into the stands, and that's when guys started jumping over, and people in press row, Nancy and Eddie and a couple other people here, Palace staff, were injured and were hurt. I mean, this is an ugly, ugly situation, and I don't know how you could have avoided it except cleared them quicker, but with 45 seconds left, this game is done.
Yep, it's been called off. The Indiana Pacers hung on to win, but when the tempers flared, and Ron Artest is an edgy kind of player. Ben went to the basket. It was a hard foul. You know, on the edge of being a flagrant foul. Ben had enough.
That happens, though.
Yeah, went after him.
What happens on the court?
Yeah, and that should have stayed right on the court.
You can have a fight on the court. You can have altercations on the court. That's intense professional sports. And okay, that happens. There's going to be fines, suspensions. But when it spills over into the crowd, that is the cardinal sin of any professional sporting event. You do not go into the stands after the fans. You cannot do it. That's like a whole season suspension at times, ugliness as it was right now.
I don't have any idea how David Stern and his people are going to be able to sort all this out and dispense the kind of justice they feel they needed to dispense in this situation, because you don't see things like this. I saw Eric Money and Charles Dudley in the stands in a playoff game back in the 70s. I saw Bob Lanier and Bernard King in the stands in New Jersey maybe 6-7 years later. But there weren't any fans involved.
Right.
One guy chased another guy into the stands.
Well, there were some serious haymakers on the fans down there by the Indiana bench. Not only in the stands right here behind the scorer's table, but down at the end of by Indiana's bench, they were really attacking the fan and just hauling off and just wailing on them, and that can't happen.
You've seen that happen in baseball this year, where a couple of years ago also, where a couple guys came out of the Dodgers dugout and fought the fans in the right field stands. But once the fans are involved in this thing, a player cannot go into the stands. You're right. That's the single rule in all the sports. You cannot mix this into the stands. And this is, I don't even know how you begin to sort this whole thing out, and where you guess what Ron Artest gets for this thing.
I'd like to see it again.
Yeah,
well, let's see how it started. I think Pete Skorich, our producer-director, just rolled some highlights or lowlights a moment ago. This is how it started.
This is okay. This is basketball.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
You know, you got two intense teams. Artest, they're going to get you a hard foul.
Yeah.
All right, now Ben, he takes exception. Okay, that happens. It wasn't a punch. It was a two-handed to the face. All right, the teams are going to get all scrummy, and you know you're going to get a lot of pushing and shoving, and
that's a hard foul.
Yeah, I mean, but so what?
Okay, at the end of the game, and it's done.
Right, and Ben does the right thing too. He goes and sticks up for himself.
See, that's the beer that came flying. Now, you'll see me running back there somewhere, but he comes right. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Now, does he know where that came from, or did he just go to the first place?
I'm not sure. But as you can see, Steven Jackson.
Yeah, but it's hard to hit punches like this in a big crowd like this. I mean, this is very ugly, but it gets even worse. You have fan gets in there and
see Rick Mahorn trying to break it up too.
Yeah, and Rasheed Wallace went into stands also try to break it up also. But that was a very ugly scene. But down at the other end of the bench, another altercation went off, and there were some very serious punches being thrown down there by the Indians.